Hey guys, got here, of course, 7 seconds after I upload a stupid meme video because nothing was going on today. They post the giant Skull Merchant rework that's coming out. So here's the actual video for today. We're going over the Skull Merchant changes. I actually talked to resident Skull Merchant fanatic Pixelbush about this to get his opinions on some of these things, but I really want to read it point for point and kind of go over what we're going to be getting here, because it definitely seems like the killer is extremely different. Whether that's good or bad kind of remains to be seen, but let's go to it. We know that the Skull Merchant is a divisive killer who, regardless of her performance in a trial, carries a lot of history and strong feelings amongst players. Many players feel she's not fun to play against, and her kit is exceedingly complex. This scares away potential killers from trying her and makes her difficult for survivors to consider counterplay without dedicated research. As a new player would definitely see, Skull Merchant is very complicated. There's hinder, she gets haste, she's undetectable, there's lights, there's hacking, it's a lot of very confusing shit for new players to understand. So their whole mentality of they like making things easy for people to understand, and that's how they make their perks and stuff like that, it made no sense with Skull Merchant because she was 50 times more complicated than anything that they had made before. So yeah, I can understand wanting to simplify that a little bit. Now, as we look forward to reworking the Skull Merchant, our aim is to strike a balance between being fun to play as and against, preserve the intel focus of her kit, or making it intuitive to understand from both sides, move away from a passive power with limited play interactions, and embrace a more active play style while ensuring her power is compensated in interesting ways. So this is probably the main issue that most people have with any form of Skull Merchant, Chess Merchant, current Skull Merchant, anything, is that her power is just not exciting to go against. She puts a thing in a loop, and you have to crouch under the thing. Nowadays, it's kind of shit because it's only one rotating line, so it's actually barely even anti-loop anymore because you can just crouch for half a second, go through. But at the same time, a good Skull Merchant can exert skill by noticing that's going to happen and reversing it. So as you run past it, you might not react to the beam reversing in time, then you get tagged. I've actually had a couple of Skull Merchants do that to me, and it was the first time where I was like, oh, a Skull Merchant actually did a skillful thing. Look at that. That was neat. So I can understand why they want to move towards more interesting interactions, even though there were some interesting interactions, especially in the current version. I can understand why they want to do that. But, I mean, the current Skull Merchant now is just ass. She's just really, really weak, and I understand wanting to give her a bit more there. The last 2 points may be particularly difficult to hear from long-time Skull Merchant mains. Sorry, Pixelbush. But we feel it's important to be clear about our intentions here. While the future we envision for Skull Merchant is quite different from her previous iterations, we feel this rework brings some exciting new tools of torment to the table. Fuck you for that pun. Drones 2.0. A Skull Merchant can deploy a stealth drone. She carries a total of 5, which scans the immediate vicinity and provides intel back to her. After a short activation period, the drone gives off subtle audio and visual indications of the area being scanned, revealing any survivors on the radar were caught by its 2 rotating detection zones. Importantly, we've slowed their rotation slightly and toned down the visual intensity of these zones, removing the large scan lines to replace them with something more subtle. Namely, you'll see the direction of each detection zone as they rotate, but the detection zone itself is invisible. So that big circle that you see around it, you're not going to see anymore if that's what they're going for here. So you'll be able to tell which direction it's rotating and kind of get a good idea of where you need to crouch and when you need to stop moving. But the circle itself and the radius that you enter into it is going to be gone, from what I can see from this description. This gives survivors an impression of the space that's being actively scanned, but requires them to proceed cautiously. So that makes a lot of sense. So this is, honestly, their art here is top tier. I must commend them on the MS Paint art. It's pretty good. So this is basically what it's going to look like here. It's going to be a lot harder to see the circle, basically. But the actual detection beams are going to be visible. Apparently, they're going to be obfuscated from the side, but like from a top-down view, they're more visible. I don't know. This is going to be harder to see until we actually visibly see it in the game. No point in actually just speculating on that. While we know they have their supporters, the original scan lines were visually loud and often clash with the rest of the game's look and feel. The intent here is to strike a balance between giving survivors just enough info to assess the threat, a subtle rotating field of detection without that threat overwhelming the space and feeling incongruous to Dead by Daylight's visual identity. Because we all know Dead by Daylight's visual identity is very strict. There's no neon bright skins and Nicolas Cage in this game. It doesn't exist. Drone control. Once a stealth drone has been active for a short period, Skull Merchant can choose to take control of her drones from a distance. My original suggestion for Skull Merchant was give her one big drone, make her a dash killer, make her Dr. Robotnik, and she would have to, like, kidnap wild creatures. Not a very good suggestion. During this time, she becomes undetectable as her control drone becomes the primary threat. So now, basically, This is basically, look at it like she's becoming twins temporarily. She goes, you know, immobile, she gets undetectable, and you gain control of a small thing that goes fast. These stealth drones move slightly faster than her base movement speed and consume a new resource power unique to each drone while being controlled. Power is consumed as slowly as the controlled drone idles, and slightly more is consumed while moving. Skull Merchant is also able to use a burst of this power to activate drone propulsion. This charge power sends the drone flying forward at high speed relative to how long it was charged. This is so fucking funny to me, because I was just talking to Pixel Bush yesterday on Discord. I was like, hey man, what if they add like a dash to this? How fucking funny would that be? And of course he was like, you know, despair, and I was just laughing my ass off. And then they did that, so that's funny. I'm like eyeing my screen to the right because I have Pixel Bush on Discord here. There's just a wall of text. Honestly, fucking. It's just, yeah, he's having a rough time. Anyway, sorry. Absolutely hilarious. So yeah, you're basically gaining a stealth dash. And I think the twins comparison is pretty good, although I think Victor has more of a leap, and this is going to be more of like a consistent speed in a straight line as a drone would. It wouldn't make sense for a drone to just go like that. It would just be like constantly going fast. So it's going to behave projectile-wise a bit different from Victor, but it is very close to the twins sort of mindset here. So how this thing moves is going to be extremely important in determining how annoying this may be. But I don't know. We'll see. Hitting a survivor with the drone propulsion causes them to lose a health state. If you hit a survivor or collide with an object during this action, the drone will be destroyed and returned to the Skull Merchant. With these new stealth drones, you want to give players something that feels familiar at the same time, but also opens doors for unique skill expression opportunities. Using technology to hunt or prey is core to Skull Merchant's identity, and so it's important that we stay true to that. We've opted to remove many of the background effects, hindered, haste, lock-on, claw trap, that were previously tied to these drones. That kind of makes the radar much more useless too. Rather than doing a little bit of everything with their drones under layers of complexity, we want there to be use cases. We want their use cases to be clear to killers and survivors alike on the fly. Basically, if they're static, they're scanning for survivors. If they're moving, they're a collision hazard. So yeah, very, very twins vibes here. She's going to go silent, undetectable, controlling a essentially projectile. I'm curious if this is going to fly over pallets and windows, though, because it's a flying drone, right? You would think it's going to obey Dracula bat physics, where it can fly over vaults and pallets and things like that. So that's probably what it's going to be like. But I'm just speculating at this point. We don't actually know for sure, but that's probably what it's going to be like. I think removing a lot of this stuff is good. Just having 70 status effects was just not really great design. I'm not sure removing claw trap is great because that makes a radar borderline useless. So I don't know, I'm not sure really what they're going for there. Drone hacking. Like drones themselves, drone hacking returns with a greater degree of risk and reward. Like before, drones can be disabled by survivors by inputting a series of buttons while close. If a drone is disabled, Skull Merchant's aura is revealed to that survivor, providing useful intel. If the hack has failed, they're revealed by Killer Instinct. Yada yada. That's pretty similar. I don't really know what the difference is here. The intention here is to introduce a greater degree of tension while hacking, while offering a clear way for survivors to interact with the Skull Merchant's kit in a meaningful way. The intel reward is greater than before, but the risk of being revealed is more impactful. Oh, I guess because the aura reading. Okay, so yeah, it's a little minor difference there. Red light, green light. In addition to her drone, Skull Merchant has another power that ties into her radar. We wanted to simplify her by giving her 16 more things. While the name is currently TBD, it's referred to as a global detection power. Once this power is charged and activated, a global warning plays for all survivors. For a short period afterwards, any survivor who actively sprints is revealed on her radar. Of course, crouching, standing still, and hiding in lockers prevents detection. Added to the intel provided by stealth drones around the map, this should ensure to help killers or able to easily keep tabs on survivors' movements. Unless they just don't move for a second. It depends how long that detection lasts. If it's like a Dr. Shock thing, then that's going to be dog shit. If it lasts like 10 seconds and it forces survivors to walk for like 10 seconds or something like that, that's periodically useful. Makes going to save slower. It makes, you can even use it mid-chase for a second to help you a little bit. So I can see of a couple of uses there. If it's got a loud warning before it happens, though, I mean, it's not really going to be that useful. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's not going to be that useful. But it's, I guess, better than nothing. It's just another thing to add on there. I can think of a few fringe uses for it, but overall, I can't imagine it's that useful. We're currently evaluating a timeline for Skull Merchant Rework, but do envision it being quite far out, as our primary focus is driving quality of life updates. Once we have a timeline to share, be sure to keep you informed via future design preview updates. That's a lot. How do you feel about this rework? We want to hear from you, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, overall, I think for personally me, this will make Skull Merchant more engaging, but a lot of Skull Merchant's identity was, you know, she is a trap killer, and removing the trap style and just making her, you know, twins light or something like that, while I personally would find that more interesting to play at the very least, it is sort of a slap to the face of the few people that did play this killer, because they removed basically her entire identity. She doesn't really... She's just not at all the same thing. She's just not a trap killer anymore, which, you know, is fine. I think... Or I guess it's not really fine. I'm mixed about this because I hate Skull Merchant, but I also want people that like Skull Merchant to be happy. So, like, I'm very morally split here. Yeah, overall, I would say in terms of keeping with the design of the killer, this is not really a great rework. It removes her identity as a trap-based killer, and although it might make her a bit more fun, the tentative twins playstyle might not be fun at all. So again, this is a lot of speculation here. I'm not really sure without seeing stuff visually happen how this is going to go. I just know this is definitely a slap into the face of people that did enjoy the Skull Merchant. So now I'm going to go read Pixel Bush's essay. I'm sure I'll have a far more in-depth video about this than I will. That's it. Thanks for watching. See you next time. That is so much text.